Hello, my name is Joel Rush, and welcome to the third installment in this series of short lessons on using the internet to study and practice English. In Lesson 3, we are going to be examining copyright and fair use issues and how they might pertain to your efforts to study and practice English online. And just to do a quick recap of what we've looked at so far, in Lesson 1, we took a look at internet safety and security, how to keep your personal safety and private information safe online. And in Lesson 2, we examined safe and effective web searches and how you can best utilize the internet to get credible and reliable information. And here in Lesson 3, we will be looking at copyright issues and fair use issues and what your rights might be if you create things and publish them online, and what you need to respect for other people's rights in terms of the creative content that they have put online as well. So let's begin. And let's take a look first at copyright. And according to the United States Copyright Office, copyright is legal protection for original created work that is authored by a person, and the works must be tangible. What this means is the work must be in some kind of form. It could be written on a piece of paper, it could be recorded digitally, it could be in video or audio or in print form or in an electronic document, but you have to be able to see it or hear it or otherwise have something there. If it's just an idea, it cannot be copyrighted. But the work does not have to be published. Whether you publish it or not, if you create an original created work of art or literature or music or poetry or video or photography, then that work automatically is copyrighted, and we will get a little more into that a bit later. But let's first take a look at fair use. Fair use is kind of the flip side of copyright, whereas copyright is the protection offered to material that people have created. Fair use is the ability for other people to use copyrighted material without the permission of the creator. And the USCO, the United States Copyright Office, defines fair use as a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyright protected works in certain circumstances. Or to put this in slightly simpler English, other people can use copyrighted stuff if they have a reasonable and good reason for doing so. And that is part of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and what that means when it refers to protected works in certain circumstances. Well, there are a lot of very detailed definitions of what those circumstances can be, but some of these include teaching, news reporting, commentary, research, and criticism, and often there is not going to be any monetization or profiting from the use of the copyrighted material, and that is one of the limits on fair use sometimes. Other limits can include using only a small amount of the original work, or at least only using parts of the original work that directly have a connection to the analysis or criticism or commentary that you are doing, and also ensuring the market for the original work will not be harmed. Not and yes, these are complicated issues. At times, you could even use fair use in a way that might harm the market use for the original work. For example, if a movie critic publishes a very critical movie review that gives a bad review to a new movie. That could harm the market value of that movie, but that still would fall within fair use. But if somebody just copies a movie and tries to resell it, as you might often find in some black markets around the world, then that is not fair use because they're basically just duplicating the original and trying to make money that the original creator should have made. So let's take a look at copyright and fair use in context. And the way I would like to do this is to look at two different ways of practicing English online that you might want to explore if you want to look for chances to practice your English. One of these ways is blogging. I know many of my students already write journals, or perhaps about once a week or twice a week they write a short story about recent events in their lives or news topics or other things they have seen that interest them. Blogging is a way to do this online. You can create written work that you publish online, and this allows other people to see your work and interact with you if they have comments or questions or things like that. So if you would like to take the English journaling that you may already be doing and put that online, it may give you the chance to have more interactive communication on the subjects that you're writing about. And another way that you might be able to practice your English, and this would give you some speaking practice in addition to writing practice, would be to create YouTube videos. And basically, if you create some video work that you publish online, this is another way for people to make video responses to the videos that you make, and they may also make written commentaries, but this could expand your opportunities for practicing English, both spoken English and written English, online. And so one important thing for you to know about copyright is that your original works and the original works of others are copyrighted in general for the most part. There are exceptions to this, but you can usually assume that either if you see something that somebody has published online, it's probably copyrighted, or if you publish something online, or even just create something, it's probably copyrighted too. And again, going back to the United States Copyright Office, which is a great resource, by the way, for getting all kinds of information about copyright law and what is and is not acceptable in terms of copyright law and fair use. So according to the USCO, the moment a work is created in a tangible form, and again, tangible means something that can be seen or read or listened to, or otherwise an objective form of that creation. Once it is created, it is copyrighted. And that includes many different kinds of works that are protected by copyright, and these include literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works, such as poetry, novels, movies, songs, computer software, and architecture. It has a wide-reaching range of many different types of creative output, and basically, if it involves creativity and creating something original that is tangible, then it probably gets automatically copyrighted when you make it. And originally authored work uploaded to YouTube is generally copyrighted, although there may be other options to choose not to copyright it, but YouTube does not determine copyright ownership. So if there is some kind of dispute, if there is a disagreement about somebody claiming that their copyrighted work was used in a way that was not in accordance with fair use, and they have a dispute about that. YouTube is not really the arbiter of that. They go to external sources for that. So let's take a look at an example of fair use and copyright in action. And I would like to actually use a blog post that I wrote a couple years ago. I was blogging for the Denver Nuggets basketball team blog called Roundball Mining Company. And this is an example of a blog post that I wrote with a news article at the center of the topic. And if you look, you can see my name is there as the author, Joel Resch. And if you look at the first paragraph, where it says Kenneth Farid's nonstop effort and so forth, that is my writing there. But if you continue on and you see the first blue sentence that has the red box around it that says, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports, here I am going to quote a news article that was published in Yahoo Sports. So you can see after that line there is a what is called a block quoted passage. It is indented on the left, and you can see that it's just a couple sentences with actually a little bit cut out from the middle of it. I tried to cut this down to only the relevant information that I wanted to write about, which was the most newsworthy part of it. And also notice that the sentence introducing the quote is a link to the original article. So in terms of fair use, I have tried to do a few things here. One, link back to the original article and name the author, Adrian Wojnarowski, and the publisher, or the sports news organization in this case, Yahoo Sports. And I have tried to limit the copying of the original text to only the part that I needed in order to discuss the news. And one more thing also you can see up in the headline, it begins with Woj, that's the nickname of the original author, Wojnarowski. Woj followed by a colon. This indicates right there in the headline that I'm going to give you some information that comes from another source, and all of these are ways of showing my intention of being as honest as I can and open as I can about crediting the source of the information to the original source. And if we continue on a little further down in the same story, in the same post that I wrote, there you can see that after the quoted passage, my own writing begins again, and I start to basically do a little analysis and commentary on the news. But I wanted to add one more bit of factual information that I got from a different source. That source is the NBA salary cap FAQ, and the author of that site is Larry Kuhn. So you can see that once again, I have the author named, and I have a link to the original site that is very clear and explicit and lets everybody know that this information about 14.75 million is not something that I came up with myself. It's something that I researched and found on a different website. So we can see some fair use practices in play in my blog post example there. And the Center for Media and Social Impact, they provide a great set of best practice guidelines for interpreting the copyright doctrine of fair use. And they have 4 main guidelines and 1 general guideline, and it goes into much greater detail than I have time for here, but some of the most relevant guidelines that they have include, in general, showing good faith by crediting source material very openly. And you can see in my blog post example my attempt to do that by naming the authors and sites of the sources where I got information. Another main guideline for using fair use is if you're going to do critique or commentary on some kind of news or movie or music or anything that may be copyrighted, you can use as much of the original work as you need for scrutinizing the work itself. So, for example, you might, if you were doing a movie review, you might have a 15-second clip of a short scene of the movie, or you might have a 3-minute clip from the movie. But the more that you use, the more difficult it might become to justify that you are using fair use. Because really, the quoted material, like I did in my blog post, or the directly presented video or music that you might find in YouTube reviews, is, for example, if you had a 3-minute movie clip, are you really going to be able to analyze every detail of those 3 minutes, or analyze enough of it that you can make a very reasonable case that you really needed to show all 3 minutes in order to make your commentary? Usually, probably not. So you can see in my blog post example, I only quoted directly a very short passage from the original Yahoo article, and that is basically pretty standard practice to try to limit the direct copying of text or the direct presentation of video or music or any other artistic creation to only what you will be directly analyzing or commenting on. And another guide is when you use another's work as an illustration or an example, do not use it for its original purpose, but only use it as an example for a new and different purpose that is your own creation. And say, for example, if you take a bunch of movie clips and you want to show how fashion has changed over time. So you take a movie from the 1940s and another movie from the 1950s, one from the 60s, 70s, etc., and you take some 10 to 15-second clips from all these different movies. Now, what your point is going to be different from the original purpose of the costumes in those movies, because you're making the point that fashion has changed over time. In each of those individual movies, they are either just reflecting the current fashion of the time the movie was made, or if it's a period piece, they might be trying to show you what a different time was like. But you, in any case, are making a different point, and that should fall under the parameters of fair use. So, in conclusion, we could go very deep on a whole lot of different details about copyright law and fair use law, and there can be some pretty difficult gray areas. These laws can be pretty complex and complicated, but for your purposes, if you're basically doing things like blogging online, making your own YouTube videos and sharing them online, maybe you might be doing your reaction to a news story, or maybe your reaction to another person's YouTube video, or a movie review or music review or something like that. For most of the things that you are likely to be doing online as an exercise in practicing English, you probably should be pretty clear areas in terms of not needing to worry too much about the complications of fair use and copyright. And the two basic things that really guide these copyright and fair use laws are first that you should know and protect your rights regarding original work that you create. If you choose to do something where you give up your copyright, that's another area that I'm not going to get into in this lesson, but if you want to protect your created works, then they generally should be copyrighted and you should know your rights about that. And that's basically the copyright side of things. And then when it comes to fair use, you should also respect others' rights to the same protections. And if you are going to use a portion of another person's work in order to create something of your own, you should attempt to keep that within the bounds of fair use and give them proper credit for their creations, and basically try to respect the same rights that you would hope for yourself if you created things too. And that will conclude this lesson on copyright and fair use. So thank you for joining me again, and maybe we will see you in the next lesson. Thank you.